Boker Tov, good morning. We continue with the 3-minute daily dose of Torah, and just sort of finishing our discussion about the burial and mourning of Yaakov. We have on the one hand a discussion of 70 days of mourning that take place for Yaakov when he's still in Egypt. It's not clear when we read that, when the Torah says, Vayivko to Mitzrayim, and Egypt wept for him. So what does that mean? Did all of Egypt weep for him? We've discussed this in previous years, this possibility that indeed he brought great blessing to Egypt, and so everyone was involved, and maybe out of honor for Yosef. But the other way to read it is as that it means basically as if that there was weeping in Egypt. And why 70 days? So there were 40 days that were involved in the embalming that happened, and then 30 days of mourning, which was traditional to do. But it's done before. There's actual burial, so it's an odd thing. The Torah then tells us, in fact, Bayas la'aviv evel shiv'at yamim. He made for his father, Yosef, coordinating all this, a mourning of 7 days. But that too is when they arrive at Goren HaTad before the burial happens. Right, because the burial happens, and that's in verse 10 in Pasuk Yud, and the burial happens in Pasuk Yud Gimel. That's when they do that. And so when is the mourning that happens for Yaakov? Does it all happen prior to the burial? So the Ibn Ezra says, Bayas la'aviv evel achar shekavruhu kasher amru kadmonenu zal. As our sages have already stated that the halachic rule is that mourning begins when you close the stone over the entrance to the cave in which someone is buried. So it must mean, even though the Psukim lay it out the way they do, they just sort of like tell you the short order of it, that there is a great eulogizing and then mourning for the father, and then we kind of then read, I would say, and this is what happened along the way until that happened, is how you have to read it. But the mourning happened after the burial, not before the burial, because that's not how we do it. We do it after the burial in the ground or in the cave itself. But it's here that the notion of Shiva is presented to us as a practice. Later in the Torah we'll meet practice of Shloshim, again more explicitly around the death of Aharon. And so for another time to discuss the more specifics, but the notion of Shiva as an obligation really has its source seemingly in the biblical story here, 7 days of mourning. Wishing you all a great day.